Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of the World Report. I'm Scott Crowfoot. On today's show, the continuing dysfunction of the United States government. From the budget battle, the debt ceiling increase, and Obamacare, these are just the latest examples of just how out of touch Washington is with the people. President Obama reaches out to Iran in what some are comparing a Neville Chamberlain moment. Did Senator Ted Cruz enhance or endanger his political career? Our history segment explores the most underrated president of the past century. And now to our top stories. The latest phony crisis and the continuing dysfunction of the masters who govern us. Maury, where do you want to start with? The debt ceiling and the budget battle, or Obamacare, which is really the linchpin to all of this?
No, it's all part of the same thing. I think the basic, look, everybody knew this. Every child knew it, every adult knew it. Everybody that didn't know anything else knew that the fiscal year was going to end on September 30th of this year, 2013, and the new fiscal year would start October the 1st. They also knew that their Obamacare would initiate on October the 1st this year, 2013. Now, in any kind of rational discussion between the executive, the legislative, two legislative houses of Congress, the Senate and the House, there would have been some behind-the-scenes discussions. The whole thing would have been ironed out, not in public, not by criticism and personal attacks as have been issued more frequently by the White House than at any other time in the history that I've been following it. So consequently, why is it that suddenly the whole thing blew up just days before the end of the fiscal year? It's almost as if the president orchestrated the fact that he wanted to have a major blow up in order to call attention
to... But hang on a second. 4 years this has been going on, and we've heard very little from the Republican leadership as well.
I don't think the Republican leadership knows how to react to a man like Barack Obama. He has a certain style about him. He's got I've compared him to some of the more obnoxious leaders of history, especially some that existed in the middle of the 20th century. And he's very clever at doing this. Look, he wasn't elected because some people carried him on a throne to the White House. He got a guy like Axelrod who knew how to play the online game. You know, he's done all the things to get elected. He's never stopped running for election. Even after he was reelected for a second term, when he goes out there, he doesn't negotiate, he doesn't discuss, he doesn't rise above the helter-skelter of the antagonism between political parties. He's part of it. He keeps the pressure on. That's basically what this is all about. And I believe that the Republican Party just don't know how to handle it. Plus, they have a basic problem within their own party. You've got the Tea Party, which won the election in 2010. And if it wasn't for the Tea Party, the House would still be in the hands of Pelosi and the Democrats. So, but you see, a movement does not have the organizational skills or the ability to stick together.
Well, especially in light of what we know about the IRS targeting them, it made it very difficult to raise money in 2012 and organize and put out ads and pull off what they pulled off in 2010. The Democrats learned from 2010 an extraordinary lot, and they came back and fought it with everything
I think you put
had.
your finger on the main key of this whole problem. The Democrats, or the Obamacrats as I call them, because he has put a different finesse on the party, which nobody ever has done before. And so he has used the skills that he has, and I'm not denigrating his political skills. I think they're superior, they're superb.
Masterful.
Yeah, and it's like he's a professional and the Republicans are the amateurs. The Republicans believe, of course, they now look at their own, the aggressive part of the party, the Tea Party, they look at them as interlopers. Why aren't they more like we are? Well, they would like to win. They don't want another Romney. Romney had a great opportunity on October 3rd, the first basic debate. There were 3 presidential debates, And for once, Obama was not prepared for something. He was absolutely a perfect target for somebody who could wade in there and go for the knockout blow. And he was so nice to him, Mr. President. And I remember one line when Romney said, "Now you don't mind me calling your health program Obamacare?" And he said, "Oh no, it's fine." "What do you mean you don't mind? For God's sake, what are you doing? Running for tiddlywinks, or are you running for President of the United States?"
So let's get back to the debt ceiling and the budget battle. Now, the debt ceiling has been raised countless times. Why would the Republicans not take a stand there before Obamacare even came up in the past continuing resolutions over the past 3 years? The Senate Democrats haven't passed a budget in 4 years.
Yeah, but you see, they signed on in order, as part of getting out of the sequestration, which never was implemented because nobody wanted to cut back the military as they shouldn't have. They weren't going to cut back in this and that, so they quietly compromised by coming up with continuing resolutions.
Which is basically kick the can down the road.
It's totally kick the can down the road. It means, have you heard?
Give me more money on my credit card and we'll pay later.
Have you heard in the last 6 months anybody talk about the national debt? Does anybody even know what the national debt actually is, unless you see the clock that they put on television every now and then?
Oh, you mean the one that stopped turning about 4 months ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. 25 million under the limit?
No, nobody talks about it. It's somewhere over $17 trillion. You know, the one thing I will, in examining this very carefully, because I do that for my professional research, there has been cutbacks in certain agencies, no question about it. I think this year, which ended on September 30th, 2013, you're going to see a deficit of about anywhere from $650 billion to $700 billion. That's supposed to be a big accomplishment because for the first 4 Obama years, they were all
$1 trillion plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so they're patting themselves on the back for making the biggest cuts in history, as if that's something to be proud of.
Well, but you see, as we had our discussion before this organized meeting started, we know that unfortunately the majority of the American people just aren't into the depth of the problem the way you and I are and are talking about it.
Yeah, they would rather pay attention to American Idol or watch a baseball game or tune out in any way they can. And you can't blame them.
You know, it is like escapism. Escapism has become the way of life. And in some ways, I don't blame most people for being escapists because they know there's nothing they can do about it. They're not into active political organization. The party system, and we tend to be we're conservative, so we look at what's going on in the Republican Party. They've given no leadership. They haven't created any dynamism, no excitement, no drive, no victories that we could jump on the bandwagon and move along with them.
Let me ask you something. If we continue to raise the debt and we don't cut, I mean, they'll tell you that there's not one penny that can be cut from this budget. It's just got to grow and grow and grow. At what point do we risk losing our reserve status as the world's currency?
Well, you see, now you're talking about something totally different. That's a relative situation. It's been tried. You know, the yuan was talked about.
The Russians would love to have their own.
The Russians will never. The Russians, you see, what the Russians have is a guy by the name of Vladimir Putin, who is a real strong leader of the type that existed in the middle of the 20th century, good or bad, mostly bad. But this guy knows exactly how to use his fist and smash it on the table, and the country is behind him. But Russia is a poor country. If you take away its natural resources, primarily oil and natural gas, and they blackmail most of Europe because they need the pipelines come from Russia. You want to get your oil and especially your natural gas, you better pay the price that they ask for. You know, they have kept Ukraine, which is their largest single unit before the Soviet Union broke up in 1990. They got them hostage. Ukraine will do whatever Moscow tells them because otherwise they don't get any oil and any natural gas. I mean, this is the way that Putin plays a game. Russia, you tell me in addition to those natural resources, what does Russia export? I don't know.
Vodka?
Vodka, that's about it. They're a lousy exporter. They were one of the countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China was supposed to be the great countries of
BRICS.
tomorrow. Yeah, the BRIC countries. But the point is Russia doesn't belong there because Russia was actually getting along after the Soviet Union broke up in 1990, and their population went from about 400 million down to about 190 million. I mean, they lost a big number of their people, but that's because Gorbachev figured they were bankrupt. And what is the most unbelievable situation, most people don't even remember this, the way that Gorbachev finally gave up is he believed that curtain that Reagan came up with, that cover, that anti-missile cover that he was going to put over the United States, where he got that from? A comic book.
Wasn't that Space Wars?
Yeah, Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he got it out of a comic book. I mean, and Gorbachev fell for it. But then for the first 10 years, from roughly from 1990 to 2000, when Boris Yeltsin, kind of a drunk, but he was an easygoing guy, and remember they showed pictures of the Duma, their parliament, they were fighting each other and so on, but they were kind of getting into a democratic mode, and then you had the oligarchs, who were big Communist Party heads, who suddenly became billionaires overnight because they took big chunks of the industry and ran it for themselves. The point is, Russia has put on a good face, and they are phony as far as having any real power today, but they got a leadership that knows how to use with any power that they have available.
And he does it in his nation's best interest.
Oh, he certainly does.
Which is what a leader does.
Well, let me put it this way. The people would probably vote 80% for him today. That's the best, in a free election.